1 year ago today, the 4 people sitting on this set right now sat in the underbelly of Mullet Arena at 11:30 at night and did our final post-game show for the Arizona Coyotes ever, for now maybe. Today we joined together to reflect on that night, the year that's passed, how we got to this point, and what lies ahead. Don't go anywhere. Welcome in to a very special edition of the PHNX Hockey Podcast. So many familiar faces in the chat. We're happy to see you all. But of course, we all had to get together. We had to get the old gang back together on this day, April 17th, 2025, 1 year after the final Coyotes game in Arizona. I'm Leah Merrall here with Steve Peters, Patrick Brown, Craig Morgan. We got Shane behind at the Mac. We got Charles in the chat, Cody, Tim, the Angry Budgie, Brandon, Steven, Roaring Fork, Chris, Joel, Christina. The whole gang is here. Everybody hit the thumbs up on this video. We
Kelly.
missed you all.
Hi, Kelly.
We missed you all so much.
Is it cool if I get comfortable in your house here? You don't mind this?
No,
Okay.
this is...
I will say that I don't care about the furniture anymore. Not my problem. Sorry,
right?
Who's ever listening? Not my
Just
problem.
get that out of the way.
Okay, get it out of the way.
Oh man, we're extremely grateful to have you all here with us. We're also grateful we will have Tom Galvin calling into the show
What a
in
get.
just a little bit. So look forward to that. But there's so much to talk about. But before we get to any of it, the four of us haven't been together in a long time. So how's everybody doing? Craig, I'll start with you.
I'm good, actually. Can I say this on the air? Can I say I'm getting my ass kicked by my new job? I am getting my ass kicked by my new job. It's a steep learning curve. I'm not a lawyer. I'm trying to learn the law, and it's not going so well right now, but hopefully I'll get there. So.
Patrick, how about you?
You know, staying busy. Unfortunately for many, many people in the Valley, I arrive in their inbox every single
morning.
weekday morning. So having a lot of fun doing that. Obviously stepping in, covering some things here and there for the website as well. But this group, oh my gosh, we are so back.
We are so back is right. Petey?
You know what? For me, it's about feels. It's about, hey, the good news is the sun came up. The sun came up for all of us, and life goes on. And everybody, I'm as positive as everyone knows. Positive PD, that is kind of my brand.
MO.
No, it's not at all. but this is what I miss. It's funny, when I left a team back in 2020, the part I missed was the people and talking hockey every morning over a cup of coffee. That's what I missed about this, and it's the ability to interact with people in the chat and in Discord, or to sit in front of a game late at night with Leah and just talk about the game that I love so dearly and so much. That's what I miss. Like, hockey still exists; they're still playing hockey, and we're all still happy and healthy, and everything's great. But there's just that little piece of us that's missing. That's really hard.
Yeah, it's been very weird for me personally this last week to just relive all of those days. I wrote a story last week kind of breaking down the timeline, and when I did that, it made me almost realize how fast this whole thing happened. In the span of 8 days, we went from reports that the team was leaving to it being a complete reality. Literally in the span of just a week. And it's crazy to think about what we all kind of lived through in that time, not just us, but all of the Coyotes fans, everybody in the Arizona hockey community who endured. It was almost like whiplash how fast it all happened. And it's hard not to be reflective a year later and think about how everything unfolded, and it makes you ask questions like, could this have been avoided? Should we have seen it coming more? I know we've talked a ton in the past about this has been this thing that was hovering over this franchise for over a decade, and yet we were still surprised.
I think part of the surprise was that we had been down that road so many times before and got pulled back from the abyss mostly by Gary Bettman, let's be honest. But, a few other people, Ice Arizona stepping in, George Cosby stepping in to save the franchise. It happened so many times. And I think we all knew based on the past that the NHL didn't want to leave this market. Gary Bettman did not want to leave this market. They would have done anything humanly possible to make it work. And even with this story, we know that this thing flipped in 24 hours from Alex doesn't want to sell the team. We're not going to force him to sell the team to, okay, we finally convinced him that this is untenable because there's no arena plan and the NHLPA is very unhappy with the current situation. But I think even when those reports were coming out from Salt Lake mainly that it's happening, we had seen that before. Mark Chipman thought he had this team in Winnipeg. He was in New York, met with the league, thought he had the team. By the time he got to the Lincoln Tunnel, he didn't have the team anymore because Gary got what he wanted in Arizona. Gary has done this before where he's played sides off each other to try and get the situation right in Arizona.
Same with Gretzky.
Yeah,
Gretzky did the same thing the last hour before they moved to Portland. I mean, there's so many times it was 2 weeks. This will get resolved. There'll be a last minute deal. Somebody will come in and save the day. There'll be that white knight in shining armor to come save the day. And I still believe that a year ago today, before that game, I don't think the reality was really there. I mean, I knew it was too late. I knew it was too late. You talked to the staff, and they had started literally packing up and getting ready to move. So I knew it was too late. But I guess in the back of my mind, I was just always saying, "There's something. There's something they're missing. There's something that can save the day. There's some way out of this."
Yeah.
And I think a year ago today, that morning, even though I knew it wasn't, that couldn't be reality, I was still hoping that something, the paperwork was going to get messed up with the league, or the lawyers didn't sign the right thing, or the deal wouldn't come through, or Morello would pull out at the last minute. Until it's done, it's not done.
Yeah, and that was the thing. That Alex was the issue on both sides.
Correct.
Alex was the reason it left, and Alex was the reason they couldn't leave up until that last minute because he didn't want to sell. And as Gary told me, and I can say this now, we are not inclined to force our owners to sell teams when they don't want to. It sets a bad precedent. So it wasn't happening even when a lot of people said it was happening. But then he finally relented.
So before we continue the show, because I think this is all, I just want to make this point really clear. Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So we're pretty clear, and we're going to state it at least once today, that the reason this team left a year ago today is because of the ownership of Alex Merrall. Is that fair to say?
100%.
Okay. We got that out there.
120%.
I just want to get that out there publicly.
Yeah.
So it's out there.
Yeah.
And that's the pulse of the fan base as well. Patrick, I want to go to you because you were in a very unique position.
Yeah.
You were an employee of the Arizona Coyotes, and that's something that nobody else here could say. So what were those days like for you and the rest of the staff?
So that the first morning was weird because I swear so first of all, we were in the dark just like everyone else. I even think the players were informed a day or two later when GMBA flew in to talk to them a little bit
Edmonton,
more. But
yeah.
everybody, when this whole thing started, was in the dark together. It was weird, and like you didn't know what to believe, what not to believe. And I swear, we haven't talked about this, but I woke up that morning and the first report that I saw was just that the NHL was working on two schedules. They were working on a schedule for Utah and a schedule for Arizona. And I was like, well, that's weird, very weird, concerning, but I guess they'll be okay. And then it escalated like within hours to there. So it was really weird getting information, even being inside the organization. It was so weird getting the information. At the same time, Craig, I remember all of you sitting at home with my wife, Meredith, and we were watching the PHNX show to get more information. I wasn't getting any information. And look, I make no mistake, I'm not complaining about the lack of information. I get there were a lot of NDAs involved and people couldn't talk and all that legal stuff that people far smarter than me handle. But it was still really weird being in that place of uncertainty and then realizing that my dream job that I worked 13 years for was going away. And there was nothing that I could do to stop it. And then coping with that, which I know we'll talk about in a little bit, and everything else. So it's been a weird, call it a grieving process, right? I think we can all agree on that. It's been just a weird grieving process. And I went through it literally, and all of my coworkers at the Coyotes, the majority of them aren't in sports anymore. Because, there's only 3 professional sports teams here, and they have to have openings as well.
And none of them play hockey.
None of them play hockey. None of them play hockey. It was tough day, tough week, tough month, tough year. But we were in it literally we were getting a lot of our information from PHNX.
Do we want to talk about the grieving process right now?
Yeah.
I'm curious where you are. I gave you guys an assignment.
Yes,
so
of course he did, as Craig does.
I told everybody to pick a song or song lyrics that describe where they are in the grieving process 1 year later. So I'll start.
Okay.
And I know you love the artist. It's
Okay.
John Mayer.
Oh, yes.
The song is In Repair. So the 2 lines that stand out for me are, I'm in repair. I'm not together, but I'm getting there.
That's a good one. It's a good one. Do you want to go next?
Yeah, I'm gonna break the rules already because I couldn't decide between two.
You gonna play the song?
No.
No, so the one I initially settled on for multiple reasons, I think it's self-explanatory, but Zombie by the Cranberries.
Oh, wow. That's
wow.
a
Right?
callback.
There's multiple
Mm.
layers to that.
Yeah.
Because obviously that was a victory song for the Coyotes. I still don't know why. Did you ever find out why?
I don't know why, but I know it was Lawson
Lawson
Krause that
Krause,
chose
yeah.
it. So
So that's where I started. But the lyrics in Zombie, aside from the title, the lyrics really don't do the feelings much justice. So I went with Somebody I Used to Know by Gautier. You didn't have to cut me off. Make it out like it never happened and we were nothing. And I don't even need your love, but you treat me like a stranger, and that feels so rough. You didn't have to stoop so low. Have your friends collect your records and then change your number. Guess that I don't need that, though. It
Wow.
it felt like losing a love. It really
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
no question. Yes.
So true.
So sorry I cheated, but I had to throw Zombie out there.
Yeah. All right. I chose the song Survivin' by Bastille. The lyrics, what can I say? I'm surviving. Crawling out of these sheets to see another day. What can I say? I'm surviving and I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be fine. I think I'll be fine.
Those times I waited for you seem so long ago. I wanted you far too much to ever let you go. It's such a pity to say goodbye to you. Could I have loved someone like the one I see in you? I remember the good times, baby. And I remember the bad times too. These last few weeks of holding on. These days are dull. The nights are long. I guess it's better to say goodbye to you.
Wow.
Side note,
He's
PD,
kidding, by the
I
way.
might hire you to read
Goodbye to
children's
you.
stories.
Ooh,
Hey, we can't get copyrighted. You got to stop singing.
Patrick,
Yeah,
you
that's
didn't
so
cheat, by the
close
way.
to dead. You can't
The
get
Coyotes
copyrighted
cheated
for me
on you.
singing.
That's fair.
Just wanna point
Anyway,
that out.
That's
Okay.
fair.
it's an exercise, but it does like I don't know. Like, am I sad? The sadness isn't there anymore. I'm just mad. I'm
Yeah.
just mad because there is no fathomable reason that this had to happen, and I'm mad.
There are a lot
Sorry.
of different emotions that I go through even now. Like there are plenty of times I think I'm totally over it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then Dylan Gunther scores 2, including the overtime winner. And it just breaks my heart because literally
Who?
Right.
covered that kid's career.
And I'm writing for their website,
Yeah.
as you guys
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
So it's
Yes.
it's really
That's
weird.
weird.
You almost feel like a voyeur at times, where you're like, I'm not there. I'm not around
Yeah,
these
both
guys.
of you and I have had our hands
Yeah.
on the Utah Hockey Club, and it's
Yeah.
it's an interesting dichotomy.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's really hard to be at arm's length from a team that we were
Mhm.
so close to, and I'm no ill will to the players, the staff, the manager, none to the city.
Yeah.
Of Salt Lake City, there's no animosity, but it's not the same team anymore.
No.
I'm looking at them like I look at Vegas or Colorado or Minnesota.
You
They're
just have a lot of relationships, right?
Sure.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And that's why, like,
but those are fading now too.
you know, it does. It over time, it really does. Like you can imagine, I talk to Bill and Andre on the phone all the
Sure.
time, but the players, you're not
Yeah.
around it on a
Yeah.
daily basis. So yeah, it really starts to fade, and it's weird.
Yeah, the community aspect is what I miss the most, and I think it was Tim in the chat who said, "I'm going to miss running into Pat in the wild at arenas around the league for the crispiest tap-ups of all time." But that actually, like, Craig and Patrick and I got to cover the ASU hockey playoff games, which were amazing. And it was so great to be there. And when we were in the arena, you know, you see the other reporters. We saw Jenna Ortiz, who covered
Yep.
the Coyotes for AZ Central. You see Laura, you know, the security
yeah.
guard for the
Yeah.
press room. And, you know, you just are brought back to those moments of walking around the rink and seeing familiar faces. And that's the part I miss. Like, even right now, seeing all these names in
Yeah.
the chat. We used to do this 5 days a week, and we used to talk to all these people here 5 days a week. And, you know, it was funny before the show. Like, PD was on the phone 5 minutes before the show. Craig had his feet up with pillows. You know, like that was
Nothing changed.
Nothing changed.
No.
Yet everything has changed. And it's just so hard. I think for me, like, a lot of the visceral feelings from that year ago have faded. But I'm this, like, PD and I were talking on the phone on the way here. Almost we don't even know how to put words to the feeling, because like on a day like today, I feel really sad because I remember that feeling of being in the arena on that last game so clearly. But then, you know, then there's days where I don't even think about it. And then there's days where I actually still cry about it. And I think that's what grief is. You know, people always say grief is not a linear process to go through. And this is grieving, and for people who belittle how anybody is feeling, either the four of us or anybody in the Coyotes fan base or beyond, like this is the same feeling of losing a loved one. This was such a big part of all of our lives, and now it's gone, and that's so hard to wrap your head around.
You know you mentioned that ASU game that we were all at a month or so ago, and the former Coyotes, current Utah Hockey Club amateur scouting staff was there, and that was crazy, just to like running into them and seeing them at Mullet Arena. Like it felt that was a weird weekend. It was a great hockey weekend, but like it felt all these old feelings came back. Like you said, Leah, everything came rushing back. You see all these old familiar faces who you got used to seeing, not just at Mullet, but at Gila River or Desert Diamond or whatever it is nowadays. So many people that went with the team to continue doing their jobs there that, work in operations and stuff like that. So many individuals basically ripped out of your life that you had no control over, that you went from seeing every day, talking to every day or a few times a week to maybe monthly. Tough thing to balance, really.
Yeah.
But the other thing about the ASU game, I'll say it too, because I went. Great atmosphere, great. But again, that building is a college building, period.
Yep.
The NHL shouldn't have played there. Sorry that was the bailout plan that they had. Shouldn't have played there. They shouldn't have left Glendale until, and I'm sorry, but I'm not getting into the whole Glendale thing, other than to say it was an NHL building. They should have figured it out, and I think there was a pathway to do that didn't cost, that wasn't going to be a 15-year lease like we've heard reported. I think there were alternatives to keep the team there, and I think that the team would still be here if they would have been able to bridge that gap with the city of Glendale. We'll never know, and I'm not trying to get into the weeds too far, but that's what I saw when I went to Mullet. There's no way the NHL should have played there. They should have, and if they did, it should have been a 2-year plan with shovels in the ground, and that's it. But Craig said when they played their last game there was no plan yet.
Nope.
Like they could have played there for 7 years.
And the land auction thing, we were all like at the time, and then they pulled the plug on that. It was a gamble anyway.
By the way, speaking of that, here's some irony for you. The land the Coyotes had for auction last year, which we all know about, is now up for auction again.
Yep.
This time the auction is June 20th, actually 7 days earlier than it would have been last year.
There we go.
We should really talk to maybe an attorney who knows something about land.
Yeah, that might be a good idea.
That would be really good timing if something like that happened.
Well, many people know the name Tom Galvin at this point, the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors chair, who in January announced the formation of a committee of political and business leaders to bring the NHL back to Arizona. And we are very excited and feeling very fortunate enough to have the chance to bring him in onto the show. So without further ado, Tom, welcome to the PHNX Hockey Show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Awesome, guys. Thank you for having me. Hopefully you can hear and see me well.
Yes, we can.
There's a lot of us on this screen, so we gotta squeeze them all in, Tom.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind, I first off, thank you so much. I know how busy you are between the two gigs that you have. But I guess I'll just start out with a nice softball question for you, Tom. Just the easy questions to begin with. So who's the owner going to be? Where's the arena going to be? And when will Coyotes 2.0 play their first game?
Well, let's just say you're going to be the owner, so let's just work on the other stuff.
Let's go. Yeah,
Breaking news.
He's got all that money.
I'm a little short on cash for that. Tom, in all seriousness, though, we've talked about your involvement in this. I know, having talked to you over the years, what a huge Coyotes fan, what a huge hockey fan you are, and how important it was to having this franchise in the Valley. So maybe just talk about, to begin with, your involvement in forming this committee. What sparked all of this? What made you want to do this in the first place? This committee of business leaders, politicians, et cetera, to try and bring the NHL back to the Valley.
Yeah. Well, first of all, guys, thank you very much for having me as a guest. It's an honor. But think about it, right? We're a year on from the Coyotes being announced that they're leaving town, and your show is still thriving and growing, which is a testament not only to your guys' talents, but also just the love for hockey and this great, amazing hockey fan base that we have here in the Valley. I'm just one hockey fan out of thousands, tens of thousands of hockey fans here in the Valley. And what happened was that I've been in elected office for maybe just the last 3+ years, but I consider myself a sports fan, a dad, a family guy, and just a guy who also works here in the Valley as well. I hate the word politician. For me, this is public service because I still keep my other job, my day job. But when I saw what happened to the Coyotes, and I've mentioned this before, to me, what really upset me was when it was finally announced that the Coyotes were leaving. The name Coyotes had become almost like a pejorative or a joke with people who are not hockey lovers or don't pay attention to it. And I saw that people were taking glee in the demise of what I consider to be our hockey team. A hockey team could be owned by one person or a corporation, but it belongs to the community. And that means that the hearts and guts of hockey fans were ripped out when that happened. And I looked to my left and I looked to my right, and I didn't see anyone doing anything about it. And then I reminded myself that I'm in elected office for the time being. And if anyone's going to try to do something, why not me? And so I thought about it. I thought about the things that I would like to see happen if I was a hockey fan. And I said, you know what? Let me just see what I can do. And what I did was I cold called Gary Bettman. And I made a call out to the NHL. And I said, I just want you to know that we don't hate the Coyotes. There are politicians here, public servants here who care about what happens in the Valley. And we think that hockey can be, should be, will be a success here in the Valley. And that really started it. And I just want to give Commissioner Bettman a lot of credit because he had been through a lot. The NHL had been through a lot. They had spent a lot of money, considerable political capital here, and got burned over and over again, not just by previous ownership and previous front offices that frankly screwed up in many ways, but also by local leaders who didn't really coalesce and really put together the right coalition to get it started. So I laid out the vision that I had, and I just said, hey, this is something that I want to do, that I want to work on. And he said, go for it. And he's been a great partner.
Tom, I want to follow up on that last subject that you were talking about, the lack of political support. You and I have talked about this a few times. How much of that do you think was the current political climate versus the ownership groups with which they were dealing at the time?
It's a combination of both. There are two sides of a coin. If you are going to be running a professional sports franchise in which the valuations of these companies, let's call them that, it's a business, are worth billions, you need to make sure that the people who are owner of these companies and really are the stewards are going to be good at what they're doing, and they have to be honest brokers. But at the same time, we need political leadership as well to level with folks and to work with local community folks and to assemble stakeholders and move things along the right way. To me, it's about putting together puzzle pieces. As an attorney who's worked on deals, as an attorney who's represented sports teams, I look at it as a puzzle. I know all the pieces that need to go in there. We all do. But who are the folks who are going to work together and say, let's put this puzzle together? When we're kids and we're working on a puzzle, there's always that one kid who bails out early to go play video games, right? It's the other kids that need to stick together and work and make sure that that puzzle gets done. And it's not a puzzle if it's half done. It's not a puzzle if it's three-quarters done. It's a puzzle once the whole thing is done. And so, for example, if we walk through what happened with the state land auction, I just call that whole thing a shambolic process, where the previous ownership group of the Coyotes, they staked everything on that. They said, we're going to get it. We're going to have it. Here's the date that's going to happen. And state leaders were quiet. Government officials in charge of it were quiet. And then what happens 2 days before the state land auction is supposed to occur? It gets pulled. And instead of people saying like, oh my gosh, how could this happen? People just started laughing and be like, well, there goes those Coyotes again. No, it's on all of us. It's on all of us as a community, because the rest of the country, frankly, North America and the hockey community starts asking, what the heck is going down there in Arizona and in Maricopa County? So those are the reasons.
Tom, I got a question for you too, and I know this is early days, and I'm not looking for, hey, what's going on in these in the secret meetings, but on a general terms, what are you getting positive feedback in the political and the business communities here in Arizona? Because I think that's something that was missed in the last ownership group. So your early conversations and just as this process gets going, are you getting positive feedback?
Yeah, so I was elected chairman by my colleagues in January, delivered a chairman's speech, talked about a whole wide variety of topics: economic development, water, transportation, housing, public safety, all really important stuff that's going on here. And in my speech, I mentioned that I like to form a community committee to bring hockey back to the Valley. And that got more attention than all the other stuff that I'm working on. I mean, I was just blown away by the reaction, which in many ways was great, but also was also overwhelming. But it just shows that there's a thirst and a hunger for people to see hockey back here. But there are certain people that I had in mind that I thought are essential to something like this being done the right way. Guys, let's think about all the cities that have lost professional sports teams, whether it's baseball, football, hockey, or basketball. Usually those cities don't get any team back. And if they do, it takes a while. I mean, how long did it take Winnipeg to get their team back? More than a decade, right? So this is a years-long process, but you have to prove and show that your community can earn back that team.
I have one more follow up to that too, and I think that I'm on this panel, and especially with Craig and I'm the more optimistic guy on the future of the National Hockey League coming back to Arizona, and I believe me. I know, I understand this is a long process, and the National Hockey League is just getting ready for playoffs. They're not going to talk about Arizona. It's not for months and months, potentially years. Deep down, though, this is personal. This isn't what you've built with the committee. Deep down, do you have some level of optimism that this is actually possible to get NHL hockey back in the state of Arizona?
Yes, for three reasons. One, I wouldn't be putting it in my speech in January if I didn't believe it. Two, I wouldn't be doing this interview if I didn't believe so. And three, I wouldn't be giving it all that I had 100% to make sure that I get this committee up and going. And we're going to work everything we can to answer those two questions regarding ownership and location. So yes, I'm optimistic. I'm an optimistic person by nature, but I can get angry. And I was pretty angry about the way the whole thing went down last year. And I think hockey fans here in Arizona deserve better. But not just better, deserve the best. And what we need to do here is put together a process that is the best possible way to find an owner, to find a location, and to convince the NHL to finally say, yeah, this can work here.
Tom, you mentioned location. That has been the issue here for more than 2 decades. Is it still wide open? Are you still considering all possibilities? I know all these stakeholders that you're bringing in are probably going to bring their own opinion. So is it still wide open as to where this location might be?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'll be blunt. I think the location question is actually harder than the ownership question. There are lots of billionaires across North America who would love to own a professional sports franchise, much less an NHL franchise. I think we can find a good owner. I think what is essential for me and this committee is finding the right location. As you guys know, Maricopa County is involved with the D-backs and Chase Field, and look at the fight happening right now with the state legislature and the governor. And that's for a baseball team that's already playing in downtown Phoenix. For me, all options are open for location. Have to be really smart and strategic about that one.
And how can your expertise help on that front?
Well, for me personally, I'm a land use attorney, and I practice law here in the Valley, and my land use practice has taken me all across the state. I also worked on the downtown basketball arena, personally helped see that get approved just about 5 or 6 years ago. Have worked with another professional sports team here in town that has cast about looking for a location. So I know the logistical challenges. I know the hurdles. I also know where the political roadblocks can be. And frankly, I also know when politicians can turn into demagogues. And last year, Scottsdale Mayor David Ortega blasted the Coyotes right before that state land auction was about to occur. Right in his backyard would have developed millions of dollars in revenue for the city of Scottsdale on a windfall basis. And he decided to use the team as a political victim here. And he just liked hitting them over the head with a club. So I understand how politics can get in the way. Also, there's a media component. You have to be very good about communicating your message to taxpayers, because ultimately, all public servants, we are steward of taxpayer dollars. We have to make sure that we're shepherding that money the right way. And lastly, I have to make sure that we are, and I'm not going to overpromise and underdeliver. And I think that has happened over and over and over again. And I know anyone who's listening right now who's absolutely thirsty and hungry for a hockey team to come back to the Valley does not want anyone here speaking to you guys and overpromising and under-delivering. So for me, I understand from my business background, it's got to be done the right way. You can't force it. You can't put the cart in front of the horse. There's a process to be done, and I know how to do it.
All right, last question from me. And I jokingly asked you about those timelines at the top of the interview, but just in terms of baby steps, in terms of inching along, what are the next steps in this process? What public-facing announcements can we expect maybe in the next months or year or so?
Yeah, before the year is out, I strongly believe that we're going to see a committee. I'm calling it a committee, but it's really an advisory panel. It's not an official um, arm of the county itself, but this is me assembling the best and the brightest, and it's a three-legged stool. It's hockey experts, it's business experts, and it's local political leaders who understand the levers of power and how that works. And you have to have all three working in conjunction at the same time towards the same goal. That would be what would be our next announcement. But for me, this is not about 10 steps, 12 steps, 15 steps. There's probably 99 or 100 steps to this process. And one of them is involving the right location for a building. You have to think about all these different things: workforce, traffic, environmental impact, infrastructure. All of those things just before you even go vertical on a building have to be considered. And you have to work with whatever local jurisdiction is there, whether it's a county, whether it's a Indian reservation, whether it's a city or a town. So all of those things have to come into play. What I want to do is show the NHL that we're doing it the right way and we're progressing. That's important. It's progress.
I want to say this was just more of a comment than a question, Tom. As someone that I love the game of hockey and I want to see it back in this community, but it gives me hope and confidence and belief to see someone like yourself that understands the landscape of what we're trying to do, is intelligent, and understands the importance of business and political communities coming together to get to this end process. I am thrilled that you are the face of whatever this is going to become, because I am going to leave this show today feeling more hope and more optimistic than I did as I drove into the studio this morning. So again, thank you so much for putting your heart and soul into this, because there are so many unseen people that you might not know that they're in the chat today or they're watching today that care about this deeply. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking the time and the time of your life to put into this for people that really do care.
Well, thank you. And also, I'm doing this interview because it's important. Some people laugh at me and go, oh, hockey or sports. It's important. It means a lot. The Valley has never lost a team. This has never happened before. And also, hockey is a beautiful sport. And I think hockey is great for kids. And one of the things I'd like to see, in addition to an NHL team, and I'm probably dreaming big here, but is to work with whoever the new ownership is in the new front office to make sure that we're growing the sport of hockey throughout the state of Arizona, that this is going to be Arizona's team. And there's going to be clubs and academies and all that stuff. We already produced a couple of great NHL professional players, but you don't have to have every kid be an athlete one day in the NHL. They just want them to love and grow the game of hockey. And I like to see that happen here. And that's all related to economic development. That's all related to community spirit. And that's all related to quality of life. These are all issues that are very important to me. And when the Coyotes left town, I really believe that an important piece of our community got ripped out. So thank you for having me.
I did want to ask you too, because, and you almost just kind of touched on it, and it may seem like an obvious question, but even as a former team employee, I get this question all the time from community members. What can people do today to help in this effort? What can community members do? Is there contact their local representative? Is it that simple? Is it activating more hockey opportunities in the Valley? How can people get involved and help today?
Wherever you can, email your city councilman, your mayor, your state legislator, the governor, and say, hey, we would love to see hockey here in Arizona. Keep your head up, keep your eye out, and just know that this is important. It's also an important economic development issue. But feel free to contact my office. I cannot believe how many people on their own back in January through February were emailing me, sending me DMs and say, I love hockey. Thank you for doing this. Or my business was involved with the Coyotes and we lost them and we lost a lot of money because of them leaving. That's important for us. So if you have a story about that, please send it to me. Also, we're collecting all the names of all the folks that have reached out, because I believe more beyond what we're going to do with this committee that will be tasked with finding an owner and location is to make sure that we're going to sell to the rest of the community that getting a hockey team back here is a good thing and the right thing to do.
Well, Tom, thank you so much for your time today. It really means a lot to not just us, but, we can see the comments pouring in the chat, thanking you for your support and what you're helping to do here for this community. So thank you. And if you ever want to talk about this further or as more things develop down the line, we'd love to have you on. So thank you.
I appreciate it, guys. It's not easy. I promise you I'm going to work hard. And all I ask is keep the faith.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much again to Maricopa County Board of Supervisors Chair Tom Galvin for
And thanks to
joining
Craig.
the show.
Craig,
Yeah.
I saw Craig getting his resume ready for the committee as a hockey expert.
By the
Where do I
way,
send that email?
emails.
When we joked about Craig being the owner, I saw a chat like no ketchup in the arena.
That's fair.
No,
But
but
hamburgers.
But it just
No,
it solidifies what I
Grilled.
said when I came in here. It just gives you hope. And that's all this hockey community needs right now is they need some hope. They need something to go. But we talked about the stages of grief, the anger and the hate and the bitterness for what has gone in the past. Let's move on to the hope and the sun coming up in the desert and let's be positive again. And that's what I think this, speaking to Tom Galvin, gave us today.
I don't mind saying this one out loud because I don't think it's any secret how anybody that was associated with this team in the past feels about this past ownership group. But, you know, as we went down this just parade of clown show ownership groups, let's face it.
Yeah.
I mean, but one got worse than the next. I remember having a conversation with Shane where he said, it's so simple. Just bring in good
People.
hardworking, competent people.
Yep.
That's what Tom is. And I have faith in this process. Doesn't mean it's going to result in what we all want it to result in. I don't know yet because there are other cities that want an NHL franchise.
Sure.
We'll get to that in a minute. But it's nice to see a good, competent, hardworking person spearheading this for a change.
Agreed.
Yeah, it really is. And I think just to echo what you said, I feel, yeah, it's just nice to see it in someone's hands. I remember when we sat at the Alex Morello press conference a couple days after the team was relocated.
He didn't like media.
Yeah.
I don't think that's what he meant.
Yeah.
That's right.
yeah.
I forgot.
When
Having
Gary
to
had to
step
put his
in.
hand on his arm like he's encouraging his child to choose his words carefully. Like
That,
What
wait,
he meant to
that was not a man who I had faith in, and obviously, like 2 months later, he walked away from his opportunity to bring a team back here. That's not who you want in charge of something like that. So there's still a lot of question marks. We still don't know what the timeline. We'll talk more about this at the end, but you know, it's a great question at the end too. What can the community do?
that's
Because
important.
and that's
somebody asked us to share the contact info for.
we
Maricopa
will put
County
it.
Board of Supervisors.
Yeah, we can add it to the YouTube description after this we're done being live, and I'll add it to the audio description as well. If you're listening to this on audio later, and we can tweet it out as well. So thank you again to Tom Galvin for that. I think let's pivot and on the subject of what people can do now. Let's talk a little bit about the state of hockey in the Valley today. Obviously, there's no NHL team. There's been a huge vacancy in the hearts of many, but we have Arizona State, and they had a thrilling season. There's the Tucson Roadrunners, which and we'll get to the poll results of the survey that I sent out to a lot of the diehard Coyotes fans, both here and beyond, and how people feel today. But a lot of support for the Roadrunners, a lot of support for the Matt Shaw Arizona Hockey Legacy Foundation. And for those who haven't had the chance to watch the Arizona Sports Hall of Fame induction speech for Matt Shaw, I highly recommend watching it because it's so meaningful, impactful. But there's been an effect because the Coyotes being here, they're, like Tom said, there were financial ties to them being here, money invested in youth programs, money invested in businesses, corporate sponsorships, and those are things that are gone. So I know, PD, you had the chance to reach out to some local people in hockey here. What did you hear?
Yeah, and I talked to at the youth hockey level, and I guess it's not much of a surprise, but a year later, it just really hasn't seen the effects yet because it's only been a year. And so the thought process now is it's fine for now. And I saw that across youth hockey. I talked to the people at the high school hockey level. Their numbers are as great as they've ever been in the Valley. So the support for hockey itself is there for now. How will that look 3 years from now? I think is going to be the real big question. So we're not seeing the numbers drop. Now, it's funny. They said the biggest lapse in numbers over the last several years was because of COVID. And that's where they saw that birth years that were affected most by the COVID time. The kids that would be coming into hockey at that age group is what's been affected more than the Coyotes leaving town. However, that may change as the distance between an NHL team continues to grow.
Well, let's also give props to Lindsay Fry and the Shot Foundation for all the work that they're doing, right? And I wrote a story, checked in with them about a month ago, and they had hired full-time employees. They're really in the educational phase because it's not Little Howlers anymore. It's Shots Tots. But it's the same thing. It's the Learn to Play program. Yeah. And the numbers are really encouraging because they're basically the same as what they were under the Coyotes. So if they can keep this going and hopefully get that endowment where she wants to get it, I think it was 10 million was the goal that she laid out, and Alex Morello gave 2 million to kickstart it. So credit for that. Probably could have given more with the money he made. Just maybe just say that too. But there are a lot of people working hard to keep this alive. So I worry, like you, about the impact long term. But there are people with know-how who have done this for so long now. They understand all the steps that need to be taken in order to keep it alive. It's probably about money more than anything.
And Craig, let's be honest. First, Shelby saying she can't get into a spot is popping off in adult league, and I agree with that. I think there is still a love for the game, but let's be real honest here. And I know there was some help in the community from Alex Morello and the Coyotes. Having said that, the Arizona Coyotes 4 years and for multiple ownership groups were like this. What can youth hockey do for me?
Yep.
Can you buy tickets? Can you come to events? What can you do for me? Rarely was it, what can we do to help you?
How about building ice sheets? How about what Ryan Smith just rolled out in Utah?
For sure.
Oh my gosh.
We saw it in Dallas, we saw it in Anaheim, we saw it in Utah now. Where was that? And I think that's part of the thing this ownership group has failed to do, not just this one, and this is several ownership groups. What can you do for me? What can youth hockey do for me? How many group tickets can I sell? I brought a program once, and I won't get into the owner. I was in a meeting, and I brought a package because outside of my hockey video duties, I said, hey, let's teach people in this community hockey. It was called Hockey 101. Teach fans the game. And we'll do it for free. We'll go to the rinks. And it's not on ice. It's seminars. Teaching hockey moms that are just sitting there. Here's the game. We'll teach it to you. First statement made, and I'm not making this up, the first statement made by the people in management were, how can we relate this to ticket sales? And I'm like, you guys just missed it. Forget it. And it just never happened because they missed the point of what grassroots means. And let's hope this new ownership group gets it, because I don't think we would be sitting here today in the circumstances we would be today if the ownership groups of the past understood how important it is to feed the community with positive things and help them. And ultimately, long term, they'll be there for you.
You remember the story I wrote a while ago with USA Hockey talking about the per capita players per capita to ice sheets. We're the worst in the nation. Yeah. We need more ice sheets. We need more ice. That's on the Coyotes. Multiple 100%. Ownership groups. They should have gotten that done.
Yes.
I think one of the other things too, you mentioned the not feeling the effects of it yet. It's only been a year. Yeah. And one of my biggest concerns is obviously I saw what the Coyotes hockey development team did in the community.
They worked their butts off.
Subsidized in the community. And a lot of those amazing individuals, by the way, are now either with the Kachinas or the Matt Schott Foundation. So it's nice to see they are still out there, like trying to grow the game and things like that. But that's what concerns me, is the no longer opportunities to go pull kids out of school during the day. They have fun because they get to play street hockey in a clinic for free. Donating that type of equipment to gyms where they're playing, hockey in gym or street hockey at recess or whatever, or getting kids out to skate for the first time or whatever it might be. That to me is the biggest concerning thing, is that all those amazingly hardworking people that had the ability, given the resources of an NHL team, to help grow the game and provide these experiences for kids to make them fall in love with the game. It doesn't take much. Hockey's the greatest sport on earth. Doesn't take much. But you got to be exposed. It's so expensive to play on ice. You got to be able to afford that equipment, especially as a parent. Kids are always growing, so you're always buying new equipment. So I think that's the biggest thing to keep an eye on, and that's why the Matt Schott Foundation is going to continue to be near and dear to my heart too, to help, because I know they want to keep doing things like that and getting kids that exposure and that experience so that they fall in love with the game and they tell their friends. And before you know it, there's no spots left.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but shout out to the Vegas Golden Knights for what they've actually done in this community. And there was kind of this vacuum. And I was very curious at the start of, or when this last happened, to see who would step up. And Vegas, of all the teams, and yes, you can watch Utah games on TV here. You can also watch Vegas games. But of all the teams closest by, Vegas, Anaheim, LA, Utah, Dallas, whatever, Vegas not only is stepping up like with their TV here. Somebody just tweeted the other day they saw a billboard actually outside of PHX Arena downtown, but also hosting those youth clinics
and for free, by the way.
For free.
Yep.
Bringing their staff down, not just once, but multiple times.
They put an investment in here. Good for them.
And that's a team that I, for the last however long they've existed, I've despised that team for so many reasons. But now I respect them for what they've done, and they've really stepped up. So shout out to the Vegas.
But again, that's a team that lives 4 or 5 hours away, and they're investing in the community here because they see the long-term benefits of what it is to support hockey program. Wow, what a great idea! Wait, isn't that interesting how that works? I wonder what our fans, diehards, and hockey fans, are they embracing Vegas, Leah?
Well, we do have some data on that. I did send out a form, a survey poll to Coyotes fans, both in our PHNX Diehard Discord and many Arizona Coyotes fans Facebook groups, and we got 146 responses to this survey. So thank you so much. And I was curious about a few things. I was curious about how people feel about the NHL today, because I think there's a lot of sour taste about the NHL, and there's a lot of I don't care, I still love the NHL, I still love hockey. I was curious how people felt about the Utah Hockey Club. There was like people argue weekly on social media and in our Discord about moving on or not. I wanted to know how people embraced Arizona State, if they did. I wanted to know what people's confidence levels were, if the team were to return or not, among many other questions. So thank you to all. Well, actually, I got 147 responses, but 146 at the time of making these graphics. So let's take a look at the first set of data here.
Wow.
How many NHL games have you watched this year was the first question. And I have to pull up my own graph because that's too far away from me. So with the majority of the vote, 35%, 1 to 10. That's the majority of the vote. So not that many games. Wow. None was about 10%, tied with 31 to 50. And then 11 to 30 and 50 plus was about equal. So kind of all over the map, pretty interesting. But I did find it most fascinating that
Petey,
1
how
through
many
10.
NHL games have you watched?
Yeah, I watched more than that today before I got here. By the way, I don't know who made these graphics.
Noah.
Oh, fire.
Yeah.
I haven't used the word fire since I left the studio, by the way. Thank you, 20-year-old. These are phenomenal graphics.
Noah crushed it.
How'd it go, Noah? Is he here?
No, he's not.
I don't know who Noah is, but...
You do, but that's fine.
Okay. Sorry, Noah.
Okay, anywho, that's on brand. I've watched one NHL game this year.
One? Which one?
The first Utah game of the season.
Utah, Chicago.
What about you, Patrick?
Oh, I'm 50 plus.
Really?
For sure. Oh, I've watched an NHL game probably every night.
No.
Multiple NHL games. I mean, I think most people know before I relocated to the Valley, crazy, like 11, 12 years ago now, I was a pretty big Red Wings fan, so it was easy to...
They try not to hold that against you.
That's fair.
Who do they have in the playoffs this year?
Not the Red Wings.
When was the last time they were in the playoffs?
How's that Iser playing?
Like
2016.
9
It's
years
been
ago.
10 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
The Iser plan.
This turned on a dime.
Are you surprised?
Think about where we're from, Minnesota, Chicago.
The Iser plan.
That was coming.
Yeah, he's in. That's going to be an interesting situation. Anyway,
Sorry.
50 plus. No, we're good. It feels like home.
Yeah,
Feels like home.
I don't know how many. A lot.
I think I'll watch the playoffs though.
The playoffs. This is the time of year that you miss it the most.
Yeah.
If your team is like, I still harken back to 2012, and my by far the best hockey experience of my entire life was going to the rink in 2012. I'm so saddened that this community is stripped of that opportunity.
Yeah.
It's getting so close to the group that's been built here.
Right.
It's so close.
I know, and that's it. Like 89 points this year.
Yeah,
Clayton Keller has 90 points. Dylan Gunther and Logan Cooley. They're right there.
Yeah, and that's the part. Playoff hockey is great. So I hope everybody that's not watching plays haven't done that. Start Saturday. There's going to be some great matchups.
I'm going to ask you guys this. Are you rooting for a team? And I'll start because I'm selfish. I'm rooting for the Leafs because they have so many Arizona connections, and it's been too long.
I never thought I'd hear that.
I'm pulling for the
from
Leafs.
you.
Brad
Can you
Living,
clip
Shane
that?
Doan,
Somebody, can we clip
Matty
that?
Nyes, Austin
Great.
Matthews. Come on.
Yeah.
Huge
All those
connections.
Arizona connections.
Yeah, I
Well,
mean,
you get to root for them for another
I'm
week.
cheering for the Leafs. It's obvious. My hometown team.
You both get another week to cheer for them. So enjoy.
Ouch.
You think Ottawa? Okay, well, we won't get into it.
Not today.
Okay, well, on the subject of Utah being on the verge, let's go to the next question on that same first graphic. Do you cheer for or follow the Utah Hockey Club? With the Actually, this one was pretty split. So yes had 28.1% of the vote. No, 35.6%. I tried to, but I can't. Was 32.2%.
Yeah, that's been
and
a
then
big hurdle.
with 4.1%. At first, I couldn't, but I do now. So I think it's actually a pretty accurate representation.
A third.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's what you would kind of expect. Although one of the biggest answers there is, I would if I could. The disappointment of being blacked out so often from the Utah games has been a huge issue here in Arizona.
It has.
And when you can't have access to the games that were expected to be there through some free options, I think people were very disappointed, even when they were on NHL Network or ESPN and they were not available to be viewed. I think that was a big mistake by somebody, and I don't understand how that works. But
yeah. And I wonder if that will change. I don't know. I haven't talked to him about that, but let's remember. Let's remember that they had
a year. They're gone.
Yeah, maybe they don't. Maybe they don't. But they also had a matter of months to plan like everything.
Yeah, completely understand.
Yep.
And lastly, on that note, the last question on there was, if not Utah, have you changed your allegiance to any of these teams? No NHL team has my allegiance. It was 42.4% of the vote. Other 43.9%. You can see some of those in the chat here. Capitals, Hurricanes, and then 7.6% for Vegas, and then Colorado, LA, Anaheim were all kind of a little bit.
The biggest individual team.
The biggest individual team
Was
mentioned
Vegas?
was Vegas. However, the majority of the vote was other. So some other of the
Red Wings fans.
But
Clearly.
that and I apologize for getting into the weeds. Does that include Utah?
no,
Okay.
not
I'd say
including
Blackhawks,
Utah.
but I'm not even a Blackhawk fan anymore. Just can't be. By
So-
the way,
Yeah, but I think
I don't
that's-
think Connor
But
Bedard
that's
is
partly
him either.
interesting here, Craig. But people in the Valley that were sports fans and hockey fans coming into this, and you can attest to this. Well, you can too, Leah. All of us have been to the arena and see visiting fans dominate here in Arizona for the last 20 years. So for them not to be loyal to the hometown team, but loyal to a team or loyal to hockey in general isn't surprising.
Agreed.
Right. And I don't
And
know
the
if-
local team never did anything to ignite them.
Correct. That is correct. That
Yeah.
I don't know if,
Yeah.
and I think if you're an owner, I'm fine with that. But Chicago rolls in, everyone wants to wear the Blackhawk jersey, and you get the Detroit rolls in, you want to wear the winged wheel. Yeah, you buying a ticket?
It's revenue.
You love
That's
the
right.
sport? Great. And I think it's going to take the second iteration even longer to get that embraced, because now people are going to be so skeptical of 2.0.
I know.
That
I
think
hope
it's gonna
we
take
have
so
that
much.
opportunity. Though.
I know.
I hope we have that
We're going to.
opportunity. That is a challenge that I would embrace with open
Christopher Canfield.
arms.
Who gets the belt today?
Oh,
The
yeah.
allegiance of
PHNX Hockey.
Because he retired
But
the belt.
on that note, actually, and it's a good point, and it kind of speaks to just Arizona, the landscape of Arizona sports in general, because this is a newer state. I mean, it's literally the 40th state, so it's only been around, just over 100 years as far as like the modern day Arizona.
And the teams never win.
The teams never win. That's a huge part of it. But you have to, like, the people my parents' age. So
Don't.
Wow, she looked right at me, by the way, Petey.
Don't.
Didn't even look at you, looked at me.
That's-
See,
that's-
you know, I'm
No,
gone.
that's-
How long have I been gone?
Careful.
I'm back in the office right again. The ageism starts again.
You're due
See?
for one.
It is.
Almost no one my parents' age is born and raised in Arizona. A lot of people my age are, I would say most. And, my age group is kind of that first age group that was born and raised here.
That's fair.
A lot of my age group still is loyal to their parents' teams. Shane behind the Mac is a perfect example. His dad's from Seattle, fan of Seattle teams, of course. He's also a fan of Arizona teams, but it's a great example. And I feel like we were that one next generation away from having a generation of born Coyotes fans, Cardinals
That's a
fans,
really
Suns
good
fans,
point, Leah.
Diamondbacks fans, and now we're losing ground by not. And
Gonna have to start over.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
And I think
Yep.
that, you look at cities like Chicago and Philadelphia, and when you think of those cities, and Boston, those are like the most diehard sports fans.
Yeah.
What do those cities have in common? They've been around for hundreds of years, and they have a
Just
amount
like
of
Craig.
pride, and people have been there for generations. We don't have that here. So anyway, that's just another thing that really
And lousy weather, so they have nothing else to do.
Yeah,
Just saying.
that's true.
Chicago in here.
Okay, well, let's get to our next set of data. The first one here, did you watch or attend any ASU hockey games this season? So I was actually a little bit surprised by this. The majority of the vote, 44.8%, didn't watch or attend, which I also understand there's some, roadblocks in the way to potentially watching the games and affording tickets, especially if you're out of state.
You can't get tickets to ASU.
Oh,
I mean, the
it's-
waiting list is insane
Yeah.
for ASU hockey now.
Yeah, it is. But and then 18.6% both watched and attended. 28.3% watched on TV but didn't attend in person, and then just said attended but didn't watch outside of being there in person.
Did you tell Shane we're doing a 2-hour show today, by the way? just checking.
I think he saw the four of us and knew that inherently.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Can we just put it out there that ASU got robbed? I want to put out there in public. Now, after watching the tournament, Hockey East is clearly the best conference, blah, blah. Six of 16 teams? Are you kidding me with that percentage? 6 of 16 teams were from Hockey East. And how many of them made the Frozen Four? 1.
Insane.
With 2 teams in the tournament.
NCHC gets 2. They both make it to the Frozen Four and have to play each other in this epic 2 OT
so it
affair.
could have been both of them in the final.
It could have been. And they've won 7 of the last 9 national championships. But, you only get 2 teams because you're not so good this year. Redo the pairwise. Start taking into account other variables. Take into account players that were missing early in the game when a team lost. Take into account how it finished. Take into account the annual strength of the conference. You got to think about some other things because, I'm sorry, the second place team in the NCHC absolutely belonged in the NCAA tournament.
That's the big thing that gets lost on me is that they finished right behind Western Michigan in the standings. How are they not even? How do they even
swept
get a
Denver
look?
on the road?
I know. I believe too the only team to have a regulation win against every other NCHC team was ASU, and finished in second place in the conference.
And didn't get in.
At Air Force lost.
Yeah.
Still stings.
Yeah. Well, again, look at the roster early in the season. The guys, I think Petey was talking about it all season. All the players that they were missing early in the season. It matters. It matters. It should absolutely be a factor. Sure. I understand you can't discount them entirely, but you have to take into account other variables. And I know we're not here to talk about ASU hockey getting a job, but I had to get that rant out because it really bothered me. I still have people telling me, no, that's ridiculous. They didn't deserve it because they lost it. That's crazy. Sorry.
That's crazy.
You're just wrong.
By the way, for all of our friends watching on TV, make sure you head on over to gophnx.com to continue watching along. But since we do have a timer now placed on how much time we have left, let's get through the last 2 categories. Do you still consider yourself a hockey fan was the question. Yes, 87% of the vote. 10.3% hockey fan, but not an NHL fan. And then another remaining 3% no. So pretty much what I expected, I think, but it's very good to see that people still consider themselves hockey fans. And then lastly, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that the NHL will return to Arizona? The majority of the vote, 5, which I feel like is a very safe in the middle of the road bet. Not too confident, not pessimistic, I guess. A little bit more leaning toward optimistic if you look at the 7s and 8s there on this graph. But pretty much all over the map. I found it interesting that 9 was actually the lowest of the optimism scale. But I wonder if that would change after hearing from Tom Galvin today. But maybe we'll continue to put that poll out there every few months as things develop.
Yeah.
And thank you to everybody, by the way, who responded to that form. A lot of PHNX diehards did that, and as well as the people in Facebook groups. And I told people to share it by word of mouth. So thank you so much. And I did write an article today kind of surmising all of the results of the poll that's up right now at gophnx.com. So make sure you go check that out. I really tried to give a voice to the fans, which, as many of you know, is something that's extremely important to me as a lifelong Coyotes fan. Well, I want to talk about that final game because we're here because of the anniversary of that. And all 4 of us obviously were there. And I want us to kind of just touch on how we felt at that game. There was a amazing... Hey.
So much for monetizing this show.
Shane had produced an absolutely beautiful documentary on the final game, which I will reshare today on all of our social channels, I promise. Because if you haven't watched this, or if you haven't watched it since a year ago and you maybe need a good cry today, definitely check it out because it really, really captured the beauty of that moment. But we have some photos taken by our former producer, Danielle Cortez, who's an extremely talented photographer. We also have video footage that Shane took at that final game. So let's just talk about that game. And you know what, Patrick, I'll start with you.
It was weird for a lot of reasons. And I loved all the white that showed up. I thought everybody embraced the white out really nice. I even wore a white shirt, white tie combination to show a little solidarity. Part of me hadn't processed any of it yet because we still had a job to do. And it may have been the last NHL game in Arizona for the foreseeable future, but we still had very much a job to do and a story to tell. And I, even after that, wasn't done because, we were talking Connor Ingram with the Masterton and stuff like that. So it was just a weird taper. But that night, just seeing all the support, seeing all of you, all the fans coming up and taking time out of your day when you're grieving too, and you're trying to take it all in too. Coming up, saying hi, sharing stories. I took pictures. I think it's funny. I tend to purge my phone quite frequently, and I still have almost every photo from that night still on my phone. Because I walked around, we talked about Laura, we talked about Mark, and everybody in between took as many pictures. So many of my colleagues that were in sales or whatever that were always there, would go around just taking pictures. And I remember Liam O'Brien's goal. I remember them winning, but I hope I'm not in the minority here. Maybe I am. I don't remember a whole lot of the game because I remember looking around and seeing the fans and listening to the crowd and how excited everybody was, talking to the fans, sitting with you guys, joining you after the show, after the game for the show. That's what I remember. I don't remember so much of the game. I do remember when OB scored and the place went berserk.
Of all people, too.
I know. That place was ready to erupt. That place needed something to cheer about. And credit to the Coyotes and to those players because they at least sent the fans out feeling very bittersweet, but they sent them with a win against a very good team.
Petey, go ahead.
Yeah, it's hard because when the puck dropped, and I think what was interesting to me and the memory I'll take away from it is what happened in the hour preceding the faceoff, and what the outpouring of people that needed an outlet to say, "Here's how I'm feeling." And people that didn't know us only from seeing us here on PHNX that came up to us and just said, "Here's how I'm feeling." People we didn't know. I had but people crying and people trying to celebrate their past. And to me, it really, it does what hockey does. It connects people. And I think the hockey community more so than other sports community, because I think we're the underdog always. Hockey's always the lowest on the totem pole, and they're the ones that are struggling to find their way. And I thought that really, that brought everybody together on that given moment. And to the hockey port, like you said, Patrick, when Liam O'Brien scored, chills.
Mm-hmm.
And you just knew at that moment against an Edmonton Oilers team that Connor McDavid might not play, but he did play. And this is a team that ultimately goes to the Stanley Cup final a few goals away from winning it all. Arizona was better. And they were better from the beginning of that game. And you just knew it was something special. So the before was the people, but the post, I left you guys with about 2 or 3 minutes to go because I wanted to be by myself. And I went and stood as call it a quiet area in the third level. And I just watched the bench and I watched the people that I had worked with for 20 plus years. And I watched Stan Wilson and I watched Stan start to get emotional and start to tear up. And for me, that's like, okay, this is about so much more than what we're here for. This is not about hockey anymore.
Guy who had been through it twice.
Yep.
Wow.
And to see the loyalty and the respect that the players of a National Hockey League team, they weren't bemoaning what their future was like. They were supporting one of their fellow partners, and that was Stan. Yeah. And they were embracing him, and every single player on that team went up to Stan and hugged him, and you knew that this was different. And I think that for me is when this finally goes, this is it. And then this is the final hurrah. This is it. This is goodbye. So I did get all my feels in on that game, and thrilled that I got to be a part of it, happy that I got to be a part of it, and to see my son who grew up in this organization, and he grew up part of the Coyotes, and he grew up wearing that logo and everything he did, for him to be able to share in that last day as well was incredibly important to me, and that will be the thing that I take away most from that final game.
Yeah, I'm watching the footage right now from that last game, and walking in, it just felt like, partly it felt like another game because you park in the same spot and you walk in the same door. But I just had this feeling to me, and I'm glad, at least, honestly, and for those who got the chance to be in the building, it almost did provide a little bit of a sense of closure. It felt a little bit like, I guess, a funeral, a celebration of life, a coming together. What was really cool for me was talking to so many fans. I talked to fans who were there at the first ever Phoenix Coyotes game at America West Arena. And I talked to fans who said, oh, I just watched a random game in November and kind of adopted this team as my own. you saw in the photos there were, babies wearing the Kachina jersey, and then you see, fathers and sons, mothers and daughters, friends. It's just, that was the thing that touched me, is just seeing like how many people this team personally touch. And it's bigger than hockey. It's bigger than sports. It's bigger than, this team, let's be frank, there wasn't much to cheer for on the ice for many, many years. And I think against all odds, this is a group of people in this part of the country that fully embraced this team against all odds. People think hockey in Arizona, it's 110 here. Well, people embraced it, and it actually makes more sense when you really think about it. And just to see this group and the 5,000 people who are in the building that night is not even scratching the surface of all the people watching at home and beyond. But yeah, it just complete chills, and the players understood the assignment to get a win on that last game was so important, and I'm so grateful that I got to be there.
I wrote about it that night, that this game was always about relationships. You guys have all talked about it. That's always what this game has been about for me. And I've made so many incredible relationships through hockey, not just covering the NHL, but from the time I came up playing at 6 years old. This game is different than any other sport I've covered, and I've covered them all. There is the opportunity to develop meaningful relationships covering the National Hockey League that does not exist in the NFL or the NBA or Major League Baseball. It's just not there. So that night for me, I thought about losing a lot of those relationships. Like, I knew I'd stay in contact with a lot of people, but it's not the same when you're not around it every day. But I also, I thought about the impact on so many people. I thought about you that night because I knew this was your dream, and both of us have families. So I thought about what's next for us. We got to figure all that out. So many people had to figure out what's coming next for me now that this has been ripped away from me. I got to find work. I gotta find a livelihood. I gotta support my family or myself. It impacted so many people, and I almost, when we got out of that, I almost didn't even allow myself to mourn, because it was about figuring out what's coming next. And I've been in that mode for nearly a year. And Tara, my wife, said it to me. She's like, "I don't even think you gave yourself time to mourn." And I'm getting teary now because I shared this message with you guys. Ray Sharrow, who just passed away, sent me a message. I didn't read you the message that came before it, where he said, "Where are you? I'm coming down to see you." And this was the last game. He came down to find me. And of course, we were all talking to so many people that night. And he kind of gave up. He said it was like the Beatles coming to America. I couldn't get to you. So I didn't get to see Ray Sharrow on that last night, a guy that I developed a friendship with, a longtime executive. That really crystallized it all for me, just how much we all lost. Even though you stay in touch with some people, you're not around it. It's not the same. There's so much that was lost with the Coyotes. And I don't want to make this a sad moment, but it impacted so many people. And there really is a grieving process to this that you have to get through before you come out the other side. I don't know where you guys all are. I told you where I am with my song, but it's tough. It's tough to lose something that you love this much. It was an absolute honor to cover a game that I loved for a quarter century.
I want to say this, though, Craig, and I think when I watched all the faces of all the people, as you said what you said, I'm going to say the word again, and it's hope. Because the one thing I've seen about the community of hockey people, it is just different. And if those that follow sports, whether it be college, high school, pro, whatever, hockey people are different. Yep. The community is different. If a hockey person is in need, people are there. It is such a tight community. When you see all the faces of the people that were there on that night, whether in the arena or wherever, it gives me hope that the lifeblood of hockey exists here in Arizona. That little flame, however dull it is now, just needs a spark, and it's going to blow up again. They're here. They're here in the chat. They're here in this room. Hockey exists. Hockey belongs in the desert. All of those things are true. And I'm leaving here today, 1 year removed from a horrible day in hockey in Arizona, with hope that there are good days ahead here for hockey in this community. Once the good days are back, this community will thrive again. They'll be connected again, and the friendships will renew, and it'll be like we never missed a step. So I want to leave here today with the message of hope.
Sounds like a good segue to our last topic, doesn't it?
and on that message too, and I just want to, going back to the great work that many people in this community are doing to keep hockey alive here. And if you're looking, maybe watching this or listening to this is inspiring you to take action, I want to make sure everybody knows that the 5th annual Skatin' for Layton is coming up Sunday, April 27th at 9 a.m. at Salt River Fields. You can sign up to skate. You can sign up just to walk. You can, sign up. They're looking, I know, for some corporate sponsorships as well. You can just donate if you're out of state. I'll put the link in the chat, but I want to invite everybody out there to join because it's an unbelievable cause for an unbelievable person and family who had such an impact on this community and this team here, and who, even with the Coyotes gone, we want to make sure is not forgotten. Both Leighton and Matt Schott obviously deserve to be highlighted and remembered for the impact that they had forever. So I just want to highlight that as well. I'll drop the link in the chat right now for Skatin' for Layton so everybody can check that out. But yeah, I guess, we touched on it with Tom Galvin, but what's the road ahead?
Well, I mean, I think you heard him say it. He thinks that the arena piece is much more difficult than the ownership piece. Now, forgive me a little bit of skepticism on that, having seen the previous ownership groups in this city. We were sold a bill of goods on a couple of them, and they didn't end up being anything close to what they were billed to be. So I'm still skeptical, and I want the NHL to do a better job of vetting those ownership groups than they've done in the past. Now, Gary said something to me that it's very difficult to find the right ownership group in this city because they built an arena in Glendale that doesn't work financially. So when people come in and evaluate the situation, they realize, this is tough. So it's more like risk takers or maybe people on shakier ground that are willing to take that risk. I get all that. You need to find the right ownership group. And the arena piece has been the main issue for 2+ decades. It's not solved. They don't have a site yet. As Tom said, they're still considering multiple options. I even thought that they had settled on a site previously. They haven't. I know there have been other conversations about other sites recently. So all that still has to be ironed out. The other piece of this, guys, is there are other cities that are trying to get a team. Mm-hmm. Now, we've seen recently Dan Friedkin in Houston. They don't have an arena either, and he's going to need an arena because the NHL is not going to be a tenant in somebody else's building, in Tillman Fertitta's building. So he has an issue, but know this, if there's one market out there that the NHL wants to be in more than any other, it's Houston. So they have an advantage over the Valley there. And then when you look at Atlanta, they are so far ahead in the process. You saw the Forsyth County vote. They got it. It went their way. They got zoning approved on their 100-acre site for the arena and the surrounding development. They were finalizing deal for a community ice and practice facility this week in Atlanta. So they're way ahead in the process. So there's work to be done. If you want to get ahead of Houston, you got to get cracking. You really got to get cracking. I'm not saying Dan Friedkin's going to close the deal, but there's competition, right? This is sports. There's competition. So if they want to be in that first block of 2 teams in expansion within the next several years, they got to get cracking.
Yep, they do. But hopefully they are. And hopefully there's things going on that we don't know about that can't be made public yet. I mean, that's all you can hope for. Unfortunately,
there always are.
It's out of our hands, except for, what Tom Galvin suggested, reaching out to your public officials and making your voice heard. In the meantime, doing everything you can, attending Skatin' for Layton, raising awareness about the Matt Schott Foundation, whether with money or just verbally, getting your kids involved in youth hockey, playing hockey, talking about hockey. These are all things that when I asked in the poll, what are you doing to keep hockey alive in Arizona today? Those are just some of the examples that people gave. And it was overwhelming to see, how much people care and how much people want to do it. And, Patrick and Petey are sitting here wearing the hockey belongs in the desert shirt. And it's a mantra that people have really gotten behind because I think we all believe in it so much. I'm wearing my deactivated fan shirt today only because I knew Patrick and Petey were wearing that shirt and I didn't want all 3 of us to be wearing the same shirt. But yeah, I think it's something we can all get behind, and that no matter what happens, whether an NHL team comes back here in 5 years or 10 years or longer than that it's still something that we can and say and believe in, NHL team or no.
Yeah, but I know we're up against it, so I just want to make sure I say this to what Craig has said and to what you just said. the league isn't coming out with any kind of announcement saying, hey, we're talking to Arizona. Are you out of your mind? Ovechkin just set the record. The playoffs are coming. The last thing on Gary Bettman's mind right now is expansion to Arizona, period. It's just not in the forefront.
He's not watching this?
Yeah, but
hey, Gary.
But having said that, just because you don't hear anything and I don't hear anything and we don't hear anything publicly or in the news or in the paper and we don't hear it, doesn't mean there aren't people behind the scenes meeting, talking, or interested in bringing hockey back to the state of Arizona, because they are. It just is going to take a very, very, very long time. And there is no guarantee that they'll be able to connect the pieces of that puzzle. But there are things happening, and you just have to believe and have hope.
Yeah, and the league doesn't want to talk about it until they get a CBA lockdown.
Of course.
That comes first, the CBA, and then you can expect expansion to start getting on the radar after they lock down the CBA.
And
but even before that, I do think we're going to have a form of announcement coming in the next couple months.
I think
that's all I can say.
I've said this
right
before, and I'm going to say it live so we can have receipts. What month is it?
It's April.
April of 2025. By the fall of 26, by August or September of 2026, you're going to hear a much more firm announcement in what is happening here in Arizona.
Concrete plans.
Yep. 15 months from now, that you're going to hear this.
All right.
There you go.
I gotta call out Shelby super quick, because she called out Kraken when you were like, they gotta get Kraken. And it was a phenomenal pun that was unintentional.
Oh, no.
And Shelby called
It's
it
a
out
dad
in the
joke.
chat.
Oh, of
And I
course.
didn't get a single
Of
joke in
course.
today.
Dad
So
joke.
I had to acknowledge
Dad joke.
Shelby talking about
We all had to live up to our
Kraken.
brands today on this show. Oh my gosh. Closing thoughts, because I know we have to. We could sit here for hours and keep doing this, and you know,
I miss this.
I miss this a lot.
I miss this.
And you know, PD and I at the very least, and I'm sure others here agree, but we made a promise that if there's major news to talk about, like we're gonna talk about it. And I know it's hard for people, and I miss I miss the daily PHNX Coyote show. I miss our weekly PHNX hockey show. Unfortunately, the circumstances prevent us from doing that. But if there's news to talk about, an anniversary like today, it was so important that for me that we all came together, not just for everybody here, but for me. This is part of that healing and that healing process. And for me to not sit with the three of you today and do this, that would be a disservice to myself. So I hope that everybody watching is walking away from this feeling at least a little bit better, part of a community, knowing that you're heard, that you're seen, that we understand how you're feeling. But closing thoughts.
PD and I made this pact. We didn't actually, but I'm going to say it because
Sure.
Well, it's live, so here we go.
If we actually still have our minds, if we actually still know our own names, and the NHL returns back to the Valley, we'll be involved. I'll be
100%.
involved.
I'll be
Love
here.
it.
I'm an Arizona guy. I'm here.
Yep.
For me, it's funny. I've had this weird thought that gives me more optimism that is totally off base, but whatever. We're just throwing things out there right now. We're all focused on expansion. I know it doesn't happen often. There will be a team that relocates at some point as well in the future. And perhaps that's another avenue, because everybody's putting their eggs in the expansion bucket. And I'm just trying to provide a little more light. Now, I don't know if I want to be the person to take someone else's team.
Crush somebody out.
but I think we were all focused on expansion too, because of what the agreement was with the Morello group, that he had 5 years to build an arena. And obviously that agreement is long gone. But I'm leaving here with the same thing that PD said. Definitely optimism, which I'm an eternal optimist anyways, but definitely optimism and hope. And this was somewhat therapeutic. I'd say very therapeutic as well. So appreciate the opportunity to do this with you guys today.
Awesome. 1 year removed, and what a difference a year makes.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I will wear pants next year. I'm sorry to everybody.
I tried to get him to lotion up his calves.
Everybody watching on
didn't
YouTube
happen.
right now.
True story.
This is what happens when you don't do this 5 days a week. You don't think about this stuff. It's hot. I wear shorts. I didn't think that it was actually
It's
going to
actually not even that hot
I'm gonna
today.
say
It's really
not hot
nice.
today.
Buddy, it's hot. I'm old. It's hot.
Oh my
So
gosh.
no shorts next year, I promise.
Oh man. All right. Well, I'll close with this. A couple things to the community of fans in the chat. Thank you, and to the people who remain diehards. Thank you. And I understand if you didn't, but if you did, just know that I appreciate it because I love talking to everybody in the Discord still daily. I love seeing everybody, and whether you're a diehard or not, at our ASU hockey takeovers, which we'll continue to do more of next year. It just warms my heart to see. And I think that's the one thing we can look at what's gone from us, but what they can never take away, what no one can ever take away, is the relationships that were built, especially, you know, among the four of us with our own personal relationships in this sport, and then with the community here, those in the chat, those watching and listening later, those in our Discord and beyond, and people who, you know, don't even have social media, but I know listen and watch. So thank you so much. And I sincerely appreciate you. And if you want to rock the Hockey Belongs in the Desert tee, the Deactivated Fan tee, or the Coyotes Forever tee,
blue polo.
Or the blue polo is it's exclusive. Only Craig has it in his closet, but the other 3 shirts you can get right now. And Shane and I are also wearing the same shirt. Oh no, the cam! Oh no, that is not what I was going for. I was going for
ratings.
let's look at the shirts. Let's look at the Deactivated Fan collection. Oh my gosh!
I think we just got censored.
This is put a warning on the start of this one.
Take out the monetization now.
So you can shop for the store.allcitynetwork.com, and of course, if you want to become a diehard today, the anniversary of the last game, you can do so right now. It's just $36 to become a diehard for the next week and a half. So it's a great time to become a diehard. Get one of these shirts for free when you do. And I know that, you know, it's a year later, we're all in different places now. So I just want to make sure that everybody knows that you can follow Craig at Craig S. Morgan. Make sure you subscribe to Craig's Substack, because he has made a promise and followed through on that promise that he will still cover Arizona hockey, and you have done that and will continue to do so. So make sure you subscribe to Craig's Substack. Make sure you're subscribed to the PHNX newsletter. You can do that. Go phnx.com/newsletter. It's free to subscribe.
Can we zoom in on Patrick when he smiles like that?
Every morning, 6 a.m., right in your inbox. By the way, my mom texted me this morning. Oh, you're doing a show today? I saw that in the newsletter.
Let's go.
Didn't even tell my mom she saw it in the newsletter. But sincerely, it's amazing. And Patrick does also cover hockey in the newsletter. So make sure you check that out. And then lastly, make sure you subscribe to Inside the Coaches Room, the YouTube channel. PD is interviewing former and current NHL coaches, management, people involved, breaking down all sorts of plays. If you're looking, if you're looking to learn more about the game, check that out, Inside the Coaches Room, and make sure you follow PD at S Peters Hockey, and follow Patrick on Twitter at P Brown Hockey.
At P Brown Hockey.
Oh, I nailed it! Look at that. You can follow me on Twitter at Leah Merrall. You can follow Shane on Twitter at Shane Deef. You can follow this show on Twitter at PHNX_hockey. Hit the thumbs up on this video before you leave. If you're listening on audio, hit the little 5-star review. As I mentioned, our promise to you, if there's something to talk about, we'll be there, because we care so much about this and about you. And thank you, everybody who was here today. This really meant a lot, and I appreciate you all, and I really missed this. So on behalf of all of us here, thank you all. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll hopefully talk to you all very soon.
We all silly like the mayor.